we need to invest in incarcerated people. People act like paying somebody in prison is really complicated, and it's not. It just starts with the will and want to do it. I remember being incarcerated in Cayuga Correctional Facility in New York when I was probably 20, and I got the idea to write about my life. I wrote maybe 2 chapters, but then I paroled and never got back to that writing, never took it serious. It got real serious when I was sentenced to life and writing was all I had left. My only right, my only form of freedom, my only communication device, because the prison would go on lockdowns for like 6 months, a year. It might be 6 months before you could use the phone. And so you had nothing but your pen and your paper. The writing program helped me create Empowerment Avenue because as an incarcerated writer, I knew what I needed. And it was inspired by Emil DeWeaver, who created Prison Renaissance. He was getting published more than all of us. And I noticed 2 things about him. First, he's an amazing writer. And the biggest difference, he had somebody on the street that was helping him. You know, you have to use Submittable. If you don't have Submittable, you don't have access to a lot of publications. And so she was not only his access to Submittable, she was his editor, and she would like let him know what publications were looking for. So he had like this help that nobody else had. And so we were getting published once in a while through, snail mail friendly publications, while he was getting published left and right and even became a columnist for Easy Street magazine. So I'm like, yo, we all need somebody like that. And so I looked for a way to create that for all of us. And that's how Empowerment Avenue was born, from that thinking. The mission is to normalize the inclusion of incarcerated creatives in Main Street spaces for prevailing wages. But the mission at the end of the day is creating paths to public safety by addressing root causes, and so nobody will think we need prisons anymore. Empowerment Avenue, when it launched, I went from publishing 8 stories in 7 years and making $400 to publishing 42 stories in 31 months and paroling with over 30,000. My life was different and been different ever since. Some calls for submissions for incarcerated artists have the nerve to ask you for your art for nothing. And I guess that happens for people on the street too, but when you're inside, you go to bed hungry and you wake up hungry. There's just so much they don't provide. And you might make $36 if you have a job, making 19 cents an hour. But I had restitution, which meant that 55% would go back to the state. And it just wasn't enough. You need to be to make money, not just for yourself, but like when the prison system falls short of your basic needs, you rely on your family. And so not only are you no longer an income breadwinner for the family, you're a burden to the family. But the bigger difference is what it led to now is we have people in prison who have fellowships, who have jobs. And so now people are in a position to like not only take care of themselves, but take care of their families from prison. And instead of paroling in this desperate position where you have $200 and you might not even have housing, it takes 2 years to get credit, at least a year to get a FICO score. It's just a whole bunch of just hassles that show that you need to start building credit, accumulating wealth, building your resume before you get out. Because out here is rough as a mother sucker for people who've been out all their lives. You can't be wasting your time when you're inside. Every state's different. And so it's just really up to the individual what resources they have, what the rules are in their state, and then how they want to proceed. And so our conversations start with like asking them what's feasible, what's allowed, right? And understanding that the state is listening to these conversations. And then we have a list of different ways that they can proceed to get paid. They can send it to a family member. They can send it to a package company. They can have it sent to their books. If they have a bank account, we can wire it into their bank account. I had a bank account from the outside. My son had power of attorney. And so he can act on my behalf. And he was super trustworthy because sometimes you don't know. Your family might need to borrow some money. Once you give it to them, it's theirs. But I gave it to my son to manage for me. And I always thought that if he ran off with it, I owe him like all his child support. Like it's his. You know what I mean? I think that Empowerment Avenue should definitely be part of the process of creating ways for people to get paid in prison that are uniform, that are simple, that address the needs in every state. Whether that's creating a manual or creating a service that does it or creating trust funds. because we have so much lived experience, like so many different ways of like from both ends, paying people and being paid and knowing those workarounds. And also like we have a level of integrity. I always say it's not true empowerment if you have to call me to get your money sent to you or to connect with the New York Times to pitch your idea. It's empowerment when you develop that relationship and you can call the New York Times and you don't need me. So we not only work with incarcerated people, we work with publications and try to teach them how to work with incarcerated people. I think what publishers need to know about paying people in prison is, number one, they are people that deserve the same wages as anybody else, right? They are people that are serving a lot of time and don't have 401s, don't have pension, don't have Social Security. Whenever they get out, they're gonna need to like catch up with society, right? And it helps them like make sure they're in a good position while they're inside. I think they also need to know that a child who has a parent incarcerated is 6 times more likely, according to certain statistics, to go to prison themselves. And part of that reason is the financial burden on the family. And also the feeling that your father's not part of your life, your mother's not part of your life. But if I can send money home to my child, if I can send them gifts, right? The money, it's not even about the money. It's just the effort that I still love them. They will help them through the hard times. And then you're not a burden to the family. So I think that this is work that how we create public safety with our prisons, right? Paying people inside. But I know that people act like paying somebody in prison is really complicated. And it's not. It just starts with the will and want to do it. You an incarcerated person will find out what the rules are, sit down and figure out what his resources are, and you will figure it out together. You know what I mean? And once you satisfy the IRS, nothing else matters. But the bottom line is that at the best you're gonna find is a 45% recidivism rate nationwide. That means almost half the people from prison coming home are going back. And I think we hold the people with the least power the most accountable. We're like, look, they don't change. But you paroled them with $40 and a bus ticket with nowhere to live, no clothes. You did everything in your power to isolate them far from home and make it hard for their family to see them and maintain family ties. So you put them in a situation that exacerbates root causes of crime. And then you let them out with nothing. And so what do you expect? Like, it's rough out here. We say reentry. Returning citizens, they never left society. Person in prison is always part of society. There's a myth about incapacitation, that if you're removed from society, you're no harm. And that is straight bullshit. And the last thing I will say, and I'm preaching, but man, I made it in spite of. Mostly everybody I know made it in spite of. And America has amazing people that created so much great shit. And I just wonder if we flip that philosophy, if we made it because America invested in each other, right? We need to invest in incarcerated people. We need to create pathways for them to develop wealth because we don't want them to paroling in desperate positions. And they are a part of our society. They never stop being a part of our society. And so we want them to be productive members that can contribute and help their families. So that way their sons don't follow their footsteps and we create public safety without bullets and handcuffs.